share, it stopped being yellow. Hey, good morning, everybody. Good morning, Mike. And there you go. You see, okay, Mike's before Dave, eh, Mike? All right. So welcome everybody to Talking Niagara this morning, and with me, Peter Giblett, and with him, Dave Wheeler. So there we are, and it's August 15th. Hey, CNE's here. CNE's here today, isn't it? Starts today, I believe.
Oh, it does?
Yeah. So it means it's the end of summer, and now Niagara Falls kisses goodbye to its Canadian visitors.
More importantly, Minto Cup starts tomorrow. Minto Cup, the lacrosse tournament.
Only you, Dave. Yeah. Okay, so the one thing we didn't get to yesterday was provinces changed to waste collection could send more garbage to Niagara's landfills. And basically, lobbyists are basically being concerned about the changes to the provincial rules, because it means that that municipalities can decide not to handle recycling.
Yes, what's happening is the Ford government has tried to transfer, or is transferring, the responsibility of collecting or the expense of collecting recyclables, particularly to those who produce those recyclables, plastic packaging, paper, et cetera, So it's taken the heat off of, or supposed to take the heat off the region, basically, or regions or cities or municipalities, from the recycling aspect of waste collection. Now, there's all kinds of problems with that, because the companies that are going to be responsible for that want a sort of monopoly set up to do that. And I mean, it's been a couple of days since I've read it, but that seems to be a bit of a problem.
Yeah, what we should have, in my view, when we pick up the waste from our front door, those bags, etc., all need to be taken to a to a storage area. All the bags need to be split open and emptied out, and dried out before processing. Then they should be processed, and we should actually split the recyclables away from the general garbage.
Well, the first paragraph here kind of sets it up. As the province completes the transfer of recycling costs from the municipalities to organizations representing companies that produce packaging and paper products, regional councillors are concerned about proposed changes.
How can we do that? Because I can see people like Walkers, if they had a process in place, they can basically subdivide paper and cans and things like that, paper cans and plastic into just to put those into perspective, into 3 distinct areas, and then be giving those to the relevant relevant companies.
Well, we know that the communities, of course, find the concept really good. Those people who are producing those things that need to be recycled should take up the costs or help with the cost. Now, of course, they have a powerful lobby.
Yeah.
And first of all, they don't want any competition, and municipalities have fought against having just one entity. Second, they're pushing off the dates for reaching certain goals. That is not beneficial to the communities or the general population. And right now, Niagara Region's responsibility for recycling ended January 21st, 2024, when the contract with the producer responsibility organization, Circular Materials, kicked in. Now, So the changes for all 286 municipalities. So there is a real problem of implementation. As you can probably see, those outfits that are lobbying the government are trying to delay the onset of this. Now, is it just because they want to delay it, or is it because they want a more efficient system set up?
Yeah, I think
this is new.
efficient system. I think a more efficient system has been called for quite a long time by those that want to properly recycle stuff.
Well, the problem is the expense of it, and we know that we have.
I know
we have a great deal of problem with what is being recycled. Glass, you can glass has never been standardized. If glass was standardized, we could recycle glass easily, one after other. What happens, luckily for us, one of the fortunate things about glass is that it can be used, any grade of glass can be used in fiberglass insulation, that pink insulation. So any grade of glass can be used for that. There is no difference. But if you try to start to recycle glass, then you have different grades of glass, and there's a problem. We were supposed to standardize glass way back in 1990, 1995.
They've done that in Europe. They've done that in Europe.
So I don't know why we can't do that here. Probably because we have so many imports from all over the place that have glass of different kinds. The other thing is colored glass. There's another issue there.
Well, and in fact, actually, again, in Europe, there's standards for green glass and there's standards for brown glass.
Those are beer glass. So beer bottles are no problem at all. You send a beer bottle back and it's cleaned out and is used up to 5 or 6 times before it has to be smashed up. And that grade of glass, and then redone, that grade of glass can be recycled quite a bit. The only thing is it's energy intensive to recycle glass. Steel, aluminum, any kind of other metal, they can be recycled indefinitely. So you have that the can of beans that you now emptied and you're recycling can be redone over and over and over again because it's ferrous materials and carbon and things like that.
And arguably, we have enough iron on the planet in use by human beings that we never have to dig up another ounce of iron ore again.
Arguably. Well, that's I guess.
Right?
And plus,
a lot easier said than done, right?
So that's steel. But then when you start coming, and of course, paper can be recycled a few times before new fibers have to be added to it. So to get completely recycled paper is a good thing, but paper fibers break down over time, so they cannot be recycled indefinitely.
But in fact, actually, there's a whole question about, you see, but that is all recyclable anyway, because in fact, you recycle paper, you can add it to new trees, new hemp, new other, new plants that come into actually the paper production process.
Well, the problem too with paper, however, is like it'll break down. You can put it in your compost, like a paper towel or something. That you wipe something up with, you can put it out in your compost. Now, technically speaking, it's a organic product, so it can break down. The problem is the chemicals which they put into the paper. And you don't want those leaching into the environment. So there is a problem there. So basically, recycling, and finally plastics. Plastics are the big one. Plastics are the ones that are so hard to recycle. You can make certain things out of old plastic, but oddly enough, the best thing to do with plastics is just to burn them in an incinerator and make power out of them. That is, of course, a bit of a problem, because when you burn the plastics, then of course you're doing what you do when you burn coal or oil. You put pollutants into the air, including the greenhouse gas of CO2. Now, Mike says here, our landfill growing exponentially and has running out. Yeah, that's another issue that's in the article too. Because of what's going on, we may have to take on more garbage from outside of our area, which doesn't look good for us. That might include up to 25% more than we already make. And I don't know why they think that, but maybe it's part of the coordinated effort between the different landfill sites or whatever. It wasn't clear to me why we would have to do that in the article. Mostly it was concerns about money, who's going to put up the money, who's going to do it, and how they're going to coordinate with the region. Those things have been a bit of a sticky wicket. Can't hear you, Peter. Can't hear you.
The only reason I could see any garbage ever being moved out of any area is if, basically we should be recycling it. So we're basically saying, hey, I've got a whole heap of cans that can go off to a can processing plant, right? It's about the only reason I see we'd move garbage out of an area.
Well, here it says that the delay in meeting the targets posed significant challenges for Niagara and could result in more recyclables entering the garbage stream, contamination of organics, and increased litter, leaving the region to manage problems within the existing budget or by raising property taxes. So, that's the issues here. And here is by Bradley. I suspect there are members of the legislature of all parties who are somewhat sympathetic to the position that the municipalities have advanced. Bradley says, our continued advocacy efforts with them will be essential. So it's a bit of a confusing thing here. Because councilors expressed concerns about possibility of having to close landfill sooner than expected due to an onslaught of materials that producers should be required to recycle. So basically, and finally, Terry Ricketts, Niagara's Commissioner of Public Works, said the region has between 25 and 40 years remaining capacity in landfills. But if these things don't work out well, we'll get more that we can't recycle. Right now, the region is trying to maintain its services with the budget it has, the coordination between the companies. They want that monopoly thing where one company does it all kind of thing, and the municipalities want more. So there's competition between them, between these groups that pick up that stuff. So we're still on the hook for the money. Yeah, but it's supposed to be a better system and supposed to change, but all these things have to be sorted out. And
I think competition is a must. Personally,
well, they don't want it. The producers of the recyclable materials don't want it. They want a single group to do it, which reduces the competitiveness of but it's easier for them, I imagine. See, now they're foisted, they have to pay up for the recycling stuff because they produce it. I don't know. I think there's lots of hitches along the way. It's a good idea overall, but they have to sort out how they're going to do it. Like everything that sounds easy, it's not, particularly if there's politics involved.
Yeah. All right. So, we got a couple more comments in this. Rose Fiddler, good morning. Me, you, and Mike. Okay, and good morning, says Mike. Okay. Moving on to our next topic. we were talking. There's a Hamilton constable who's been suspended for posting content from extremist groups on his social media site.
Well, for one thing, I think this constable is not the brightest of all. He is a police officer. He's a commended police officer. He's a very good police officer. He's got some sort of medal, and but he's been foolish with his posts. He's connected himself with Diagolon, which is a far-right extremist group. He reposts extremist type of videos and messages, and the Hamilton police force themselves didn't know anything about this, but it wasn't until the CBC started doing some investigations into far-right groups and found that, and someone tipped them off, you know what, there's a guy, it looks like his name is the same as one of the police officers in Hamilton, and we find that he's been posting these far-right extremist types.
Yeah. And actually what that gives a lot of concern for a lot of people in areas that about the allegations of racist cops. And that's not to say that he's racist just because he's he's favoring a particular group, but it just fuels that fire, doesn't it?
Well, it does have an overtone, because he's saying that the groups that he's resharing far right groups, anti-immigrant messages, and posts in support for a coup against the government. So here is a
cop who's posting for
The
review.
guy's name is Renato Greco. And reposted extremist content quite often. And the problem here is that the article goes on and says that the military and the police are areas, the people who follow in that vocation are more susceptible to extremist type of far right organizations. So Diagolon or something like that may appeal to a police officer. There's a psychiatrist here or something, or somebody who I forget who the person is, who's done studies on this.
Yeah.
Notes that people that go into the military and the police are already have the mindset of protecting society. That's their job. However, it goes off the rails and they start to think of themselves as people protecting the whole of Canada against outside threats that they imagine but aren't there. It's the replacement theory, and that is mentioned here. The replacement theory that this fella here has posted, I think back in 2020, that the military and the police should galvanize themselves together and have a coup over the government, because it's up to us to protect our nation against this vast array of immigrants that are coming into the country.
Yeah, it's the anti-immigrant stuff. You see, it's the anti-immigrant stuff that is always the problem there, isn't it?
Yes. So that you should be pretty alarmed about that.
Yeah. Well, we're all immigrants. That's the thing. You know, in most of it.
Immigrants always say that.
Well,
new immigrants always say that. You know.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, everybody who lives here in North America has migrated here.
Now, one of the groups that the Second Sons is one of the groups that CBC investigated, identified as hosting an active club gathering in the recent area. Police spokesman, ABC. Oh yeah, so the CBC had to inform the Hamilton police, and then Hamilton police looked into it and said, "Oh, now the guy is relieved of duty with pay, which is nice. He gets a nice holiday, and that if the investigation searching into what he's done is in contravention of the how a police should operate and how they should be, basically their standards and their ideals, then he will be disciplined. But it doesn't say he'll lose his job, which is probably a good thing, because a lot of times when people get hooked up on these on controversies of this kind, they kind of lose their ability to think well. It's almost like a drug. We talked about fentanyl or other kind of drugs that kind of get into your brain and change the way you think. And I think these kind of things do the same thing. These kind of ideas, conspiracies, get into a person's brain and change the way they think, take away their ability to reason, and they get into this belief system that they otherwise wouldn't have done if they hadn't been exposed to it. There's something about the brainwashing ability of these kind of things that not everybody is susceptible for, but people who go into the military and the police seem to be a little bit more susceptible to this kind of thing. Mm-hmm. That's what the report has said here.
Yeah.
Because they already have the mindset that we have to protect, we have to do all this, and they extrapolate beyond, way off the rails, and feel that immigrants coming into the country, all manner of replacement theory type things, that's up to them to sort of, how come the government's not doing anything about this? How can we fix it? But they're trying to fix a problem that doesn't really exist.
Yeah. All right.
And I think that's the biggest takeaway from this, is that we found this also in our military. The Canadian military has had a lot of far right and extremist type elements into it. And the article says that, you're bound to find that in these groups, because they're already set up in a very disciplined way, and they have the mindset that they must protect, which makes them vulnerable to these kind of conspiracies. And you find them in much higher incidences in the military and the police.
Yeah, what bothers me about this is the growth in this kind of activity.
Well, it's the rage, and it's also the fact that social media and the effectiveness of brainwashing, basically, it's, although it's not maybe a complete kind of brainwashing, it is an ability to excite certain people, like anybody you've known that I know accepts a bizarre kind of conspiracy theory. I know an extreme, like some of the, I can know two people who are well above the average intelligence of anyone else, very high IQs, and both of those persons I'm thinking of at this right were both suckers to, these kind of theories.
Yeah,
like I remember. It was just it's just bizarre that somebody of that kind of intelligence. Now, this is a person that's a very good cop, in all everything, but he's being walked down the garden path on this. He's being susceptible to this kind of thing. So that is the important takeaway here. So it's up to and another problem is police and military are very enclosed systems, and they're very reluctant to face up to the problems they have, and they don't like to be told what to do outside. So they'll say, we'll investigate it ourselves, but it kind of goes by the wayside, and they don't like outside interference and that kind of thing. So that's another issue.
And also that outside interference, often committees that control police and armed services are often full of people who would call for disbanding of the police and armed services.
Well, those people are jokes. You can't.
Yeah,
No one pays attention to them.
They're both. If you see what I mean, my point being is that they're both flip sides of the same coin, aren't they?
Kind of. But it's with people in this particular case who go on with the replacement theory and all kinds of other stuff that they take on as the truth without drilling down and trying to find the evidence of it. Those conspiracy theories are very, very appealing, or not exactly appealing, but the people in the military and police are susceptible to them in much more than the average population. That's why it's a danger to have that. We found police being disciplined because they wouldn't. They were they were backing up demonstrations against COVID vaccines, that kind of thing. That's not the police. Now the conspiracy comes out in the police that are expected to go there and minimize demonstrations against COVID vaccines. They're trying to enforce the masks or whatever else is supposed to be happening there. And what they do is they end up endorsing them. So that's a big problem. On the other side, as you have pointed out, there's other people that say, oh, we don't need any cops and we don't need any military and all that. Well, I'm not so sure that they believe in conspiracies, but they see it as an infringement. Some people think of it as an infringement on freedom. There's all kinds of.
May not be a conspiracy, but some people are getting there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. All right. So moving on, Trump tells Goldman Sachs CEO to hire a new economist after the bank says consumers will pay the bulk of tariff costs. And he's also looking at museum changes because he wants the version of history changed.
This guy is outright wacky. Pretty soon he's going to be a third world dictator. He's going to be Idi Amin here pretty soon. He's maybe not going to put everybody in a pit full of vipers like Idi Amin did, but he's certainly acting like Idi Amin right now. He's saying, okay, Goldman Sachs come up with that. Now, Goldman Sachs is a pretty conservative type of financial institution. And Goldman Sachs is, they got a big tax relief basically from Donald Trump recently with his big ugly bill. But Goldman Sachs goes ahead and does what it has to do and comes up with a report. And the report says that at this particular time, 22% of the tariffs are being paid by the consumer, and that will go up to 67% in short order.
And that's
Trump doesn't like this. His narrative is the other countries pay the tariffs.
Yeah, and the point being is that that we haven't been talking about the figures the way that Goldman Sachs have been talking about, but we've been saying exactly what Goldman Sachs are saying, is that the consumer pays at the end of the day.
Yeah, so this is super interesting because Goldman Sachs has come up and said that, that this is what we find in our data. Yeah. And we found that when the Bureau of Labor Statistics came up with a number that a government institution that came up with a number for the employment figures, Trump didn't like it. So right away, he fired the person that was in charge of it. Meanwhile, that person was not in charge of the data. And then he put in this guy, Stephen Moore, who is a heritage, one of those guys from the Heritage Front or whatever that is, the Heritage Committee, and the guys that came up with the Project 2025. And suddenly he's found a whole bunch of data within a week, that says that the Bureau of Labor Statistics was completely wrong. And here's the new data. And yet no one can check that data because it's not published. It's not like the other stuff that can be published and says, oh, everything's just fine. Look right here. and he happens to be a Trump loyalist. And
Yeah.
and now Trump can't. So Trump can't fire the guy from Goldman Sachs, so he demands that David Solomon fire him, who is the guy that's, I guess, is in charge of Goldman Sachs. So the economist comes up and does his homework, does what he is asked to be done by his boss, comes up with the report. Trump doesn't like it. He can't fire the guy, so he tells Solomon to fire him. What's wrong with this guy?
Yeah.
I don't like those numbers. You're just, and he's kind of like saying, you're doing this on purpose. You're fudging the figures to make me look bad. Why would Goldman Sachs do that when they got their guy in the office? Really? Like,
Goldman Sachs have got no reason to make Trump look bad. Goldman Sachs is not concerned about any government. They're just working on, the economy, and that's all that they're concerned about is the economy, how they make a profit, etc.
Yeah. So the tariffs right now, they come up with the idea that now Trump is saying, no, this is not happening. The suppliers and the importers are eating the tariffs. So, and that's going to happen. That's going to continue. It really misses the point altogether. Even if the cost of things are coming in and the producers, let's say in Europe, send it over at a discounted rate so they don't lose the market, and the importer puts a bit of a reduction on it and so on, that when they buy it, it still is money taken out of the economy as a tax. Now, what the Republicans and conservatives have always said, if you tax people too much, that stifles the economy, because that's less money they can use to spend and regenerate things.
And that's exactly where Goldman Sachs are concerned.
Well,
kind
of, because
that cup that cost $1 that now costs $1.20. Yeah. Right. That it might only be a cup and it might only be $1.20, but it all adds up, doesn't it?
So Trump is trying to say that this is not the truth on his Truth Social post on David Solomon and Goldman Sachs refuse to give credit where credit is due. I think that David should go out and get himself a new economist, or maybe he ought to just focus on being a DJ and not bother running a major financial institution. I guess David Solomon had like to be a DJ at parties, and he had to give it up because Goldman Sachs executives found that not really conducive to a good a good image.
I would find that fascinating that he's got something outside of banking.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so Solomon previously performed regularly at high profit events or high profile events. However, facing pressure from Banks board, he gave up the DJing side gig 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So anyway, it says the report Goldman Sachs economists published over the weekend estimated the Americans absorbed 22% of the tariff. So already they're hit with 22% of the tariff. That was through June, but that share will rise to 67% by October if tariffs. Now, of course, this is the qualifier. If tariffs follow the same pattern as the earlier ones.
Yeah.
So they're just protecting. They're putting out information for their investors, and that's what they should be doing. Now, we know we can't trust the government figures anymore because Trump's put his boys in there. They'll tell you, if New York City is burning to the ground, they'll say that it's not. If there's 50 more people on the bread line, they'll say no, there are 50 million people more on the bread line. They say no, that's a fake statistic.
Yeah,
that's just they just want to hear what they want to hear. So this authoritarian stuff is happening, and I don't know if you heard of what happened to Newsom in California. Newsom had a kind of a press conference, and Trump sent his goons down there, his some military goons, to disrupt the thing in front. So Newsom was in front on the street, and a bunch of military dudes came in and tried to push him off the road, tell him, you know, you got to look into that. And like he sent military people to intimidate Newsom at a press conference. That press conference went indoors, and Newsom pretty much says, "Well, there, you see what you got? You got authoritarian figure right there. He's trying to intimidate us right on the street."
Yeah.
So it's getting nasty out there.
This is a feature that really wasn't part of Trump's first presidency.
No, he didn't have the power to do it. Now he's got all kinds of yes men, nobody to tell him no. Because if anyone tells them no, they're in trouble. Yeah. Their best chance is to persuade him if they can, but they have to walk on eggshells to do it. You know.
Well, the interesting one is the because the 250th anniversary of the country is coming up. He's telling the Smithsonian Institute that you've got to be telling my version of history, not the woke, not the quote woke partisan narrative that is often out there in these museums.
Well, let's just go back to a simple fact. Like whoever owns the country writes the history. And American history, British history, Canadian history is not correct. The very first thing you want to talk about with American is the American Revolution. The Americans believe they won the American Revolution with a bunch of militias and patriots. That's not the case. They had an army, but that army needed to be supplied. Who supplied it? The French. The French bought them their muskets. The French bought them their gunpowder. The French made them their uniform. That's why the American Revolutionary Army was in blue, because it was the same color as the French one, right? Yep. The next thing is the French had to come in with their navy, because that was they were the only other superpower with a big navy. Yeah, the U.S. would not have been able to survive without that.
Exactly.
And then finally, in the battle that decided everything, the Battle of Yorktown in 1781, there was as many French soldiers there that were British soldiers altogether. Yeah. So there was an army of French, and there was an army of Americans.
That was primarily a France versus Britain army that France won.
Yes, and you could include Spain and the Dutch too. They all had a bone to pick with Britain. Plus, Britain was fighting huge battles in Gibraltar at the same time, so they're stretched pretty thin. The French came up and defeated the British Navy in Grenada. They caught them off guard, which made a huge difference. So just that fact, nobody knows, because or very little people knows, because they cut that part out. They cut the French part out, particularly the fact that a up-and-coming freedom republic went to a very oppressive authoritarian kingdom for funds.
And you think about it, the War of 1812 only extended because of the battle between Britain and France.
It only happened because Britain was holding on by a thread against Napoleon. They're there now. What Trump would want to do is take any kind of reference out to that. They want to take references out to slavery, the backstabbing that all of us did in North America with our indigenous folk, where we signed a treaty with them, put a few lines of small print in it, which abrogated the treaty as soon as we wanted it abrogated. So those are the kinds of things he doesn't want put in. So and of course he's using this because people don't want to hear the truth. People don't want the Washington Redskins to be turned into the Washington Commanders, anything of distraction. But this idea that Goldman Sachs, he can't sack the guy, the economist that Goldman Sachs said tariffs were encroaching upon people's spending ability. So he tells David Solomon to sack him.
Yeah.
I don't like those figures. They must be incorrect because I don't like them. I'm telling you, red is green. Red is green. So, and you don't see that red is green.
And of course, our 250th anniversary of the United States happens next year, doesn't it?
Yes, it's 1776 was the
yep.
Right. I remember I went over the new San Juan Hotel with friends of mine on the US's 200th anniversary in 1776. We figured we better go over to the States and help them celebrate. So we get wasted in the new San Juan Hotel or a bar there right across the lower bridge.
There you go. Yeah. And but I don't think anybody's been going to celebrate it for the 250th.
I might if things sort of sort themselves out. Look, my ancestry comes from the United States on my grandfather's side. So I don't know. We've been there since at least 1700. So, I mean, and my great-great-grandfather fought in the Civil War, for the North, happily.
Yeah. Well, actually, and hey, I wouldn't hold it against you even if he fought for the South. It would not be an issue about that because that's past. That's the past. That's not today.
Yeah. So anyway, the whole point I'm trying to make here is that you want to change history. No, what we want to do. What's happening now is you get things like the 1619 thing where that's the line by which America become a corrupted, slave-owning, evil society. Well, that's wrong. That's just wrong, right? And then on the other side, you've got America is the shining city upon the hill, like Jerusalem. That's wrong. What you need to do to be real is to find out real history. And if you find out real history, then there's where you find the mistakes that you've made. You can take Great Britain, for example. Great Britain is being beat up pretty bad by being the world's biggest colonial power. And that's what it was. Did it exploit countries? Exploited countries all over the place.
And it's a historical fact, right?
Yeah. But it built railways in India.
No British person denies it. But again, we're not responsible for Britain's past.
The idea, though, is that it's all negative. Nobody, they say, okay, we went into India and exploited it, but nobody says how much railroads they built, or that they stopped the incineration of women on the funeral pyre of their husbands. Yeah. And so they brought laws in to stop the practice of women being forced to go on the funeral pyre of their dead husband, that kind of thing. And also the biggest and probably one of the greatest accomplishments of any empire was the abolition of world slavery and the amount of money and effort they put into it. That gets overlooked. So we seem to concentrate always on the negative.
And actually one of the greatest economic influences in history, right? And yes, it's an era that's past, but they were undoubtedly one of the greatest economic influences.
Yeah, that's where the Industrial Revolution began.
Exactly.
And
we don't have our modern technology. We don't have our our modern economies, but for the Industrial Revolution that the British Empire brought.
Yeah. So the problem, the whole idea here is a measured look at history. People are people. People will exploit other people. People will do good things for other people. Like here in our own city, you might complain about the councilors or the regional councilors or the councilors at City Hall. The basic intent is to improve the city. I mean, they might screw up. There might be a few corrupt politicians along the line. There might be really bad ideas that get out of hand. But the whole idea is to progress society in a positive way. And but you have to acknowledge where you went wrong in the past and where you went right, but also where you went right.
Yeah.
And you have to acknowledge the time period which you're talking about.
Yeah.
I just read a book about Christopher Columbus, which claims he's nowhere near as bad as he's put out to be.
Yeah. And that's the whole point about history. There's good and bad sides to it, and you have to learn the lesson across both.
Yeah. So anyway, there's cruelty. There's that just because people aren't perfect. Their history is not perfect, but it is important to be true to history, not to embellish it to the better or to denounce it farther to the worse. These are things that happen. We have to figure out why they did. So, like Trump wants economic numbers he likes, and he wants the history to be what he wants. That is the sign of a dictator. How long is he going to last? And he's just started to intimidate Newsom with military forces, military groups, or military or police groups at his news conference. He's buckling down on. He's put a military presence in Washington, D.C. He says, maybe I'll go after Chicago too, because they've got a really bad crime. But it is the cities in the red states and the swing states that have much higher crime rates in their cities, but he won't dare send the military in there.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on. Where were we? Yeah. Niagara's tourism sector is dealing with an upended travel pattern. There's been a decline in US visitors this year, but there's been a rise in Canadian tourists this year.
Yeah, we had a slow start to the summer. There was a decrease in American traffic, but there was a decrease all in all, and that was because of the weather, basically. There was a little bit too much rain, and it wasn't the greatest weather. That was principally what stopped the daytime traveler coming or the weekend traveler coming. But it seems to be on the uptick now in August. We seem to have more Canadian, a little bit less American, but more Canadian. The article did go on to talk about the major decline or a significant decline in Canadians going to the U.S. and Americans coming here. So the first time in 20 years, excluding the COVID years, but the first time in 20 years, more Americans are coming here than Canadians are going to the U.S. Usually more Canadians go to the U.S. than Americans come to Canada, which was a surprise to me since of their huge numbers down there. But anyway, that's the case. But not now. More Americans are coming to Canada than Canadians are going to the U.S. There is less U.S. people coming here, and that could be for economic reasons too. Because when I talk to a friend of mine in the States, she lives in Florida, which is a kind of a mega state. They have no clue what's going on down there. She says they don't follow the stuff at all. They don't. Whatever Trump tells them, they believe it. And so they might be affected by the economy. That's why they aren't coming up here. Just like our dollar doesn't go as far in the States as it used to. perhaps the economic downturn of some people in the United States, or maybe the fear of future economic
That's how finicky tourism is, though.
Yeah. So the number one reason was the weather. So it was down 10%, but still maintainable. But now it's back. It's starting to climb back up in August.
Actually, the weather's been bad. We had that horrible rainy period at the beginning. Now we've had this horrible 100-degree weather, which has just been going on and on and on. I know the last couple of days haven't been that bad, but we haven't had rain in August.
I had my windows open all the way last night because the temperature went down to 18, and I just opened every window. I still got them open. Oh, nice to change out the air.
Yeah.
So basically, the tourism will survive. They will have an uptick because the Niagara Falls, and they're making a lot of effort to bring in more things that will interest more people. That I feel will probably be the difference. Remember, we got to get past this, and I don't know. The big tell has to wait 17 months though. There's going to be no and unless the law kicks in and tells Trump that he's overstepping his authority with tariffs, which has been put out there, but it takes a long time to go through law. We're going to have to wait 17 months until the midterms. And it's pretty clear at this particular time that the Republicans will be destroyed. That's why they're trying to gerrymander as much as they can, which was forcing the Democrat states to gerrymander in the same way. So the reason why this gerrymandering is happening is because the early indications are the Republicans are going to get destroyed in the midterm.
Actually, it swings and roundabouts will tell you that, right? Because Trump is on the way to becoming, I think, the least popular president in history right now.
I think he already is, but he does have that core of MAGA people who believe he's a cult god.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is that on those who support him, he's the best president in history, and of those who don't support him, he's the worst in history, right? And it's just the way it's looked at. But anyway,
the real problem I see is the Project 2025 people, the Heritage Committee or whatever it is, come up with the Project 2025 agenda, which means you eliminate everybody in there that's going to be opposing to you and your ideals. And they found that Trump can get votes, but he isn't ideologically smart enough. He's not devoted enough. So they're going to use him as much as they can. What Trump can do is get elected. That's what they haven't got. And even the Democrats are amazed by this. We've got this guy that can get elected so easily. He has got these core followers. He's got this cult-like base of MAGA. That's the thing that I think everybody hates Trump, but the Republicans can see that this is their way of bringing in Project 2025, and they can use that guy as long as he's electable. They'll use him. They'll let him get away with this BS a lot until they can control him or eliminate him. But you got to be very, very careful with this. Pretty soon, you're not going to be able to control them. I mean, they thought they were going to be able to control Hitler, and that didn't happen.
I don't think they can control him.
Yeah, well, right now they're all afraid of him. They kowtow to him. They bow to him. He says jump, and they say how high. I thought it was astonishing that he phones up. He announces in public, Governor Abbott, find me 5 more seats. And Governor Abbott says, yes, sir, 3 bags full, sir. or 5 bags full, basically.
Mm.
And I couldn't believe that. He's
Yeah.
given orders to a governor to gerrymander his state 5 years before they normally do. And he says, yes, sir, 5 bags full. Here's your 5 seats. We're going to find them, maybe 6. And when the Republicans are asked about this, they said that this is the best way to pursue Donald Trump's agenda.
Mm-hmm. All right. Okay. So moving on. We got one more. We got one comment. Huge amount of Canadian tourists. Great job, Canada. Yeah, I'll agree. All right. On gun control, certainly gun control advocates are fearing that Carney will delay the buyback laws. And hey, I think that this is one of the areas that I'm not sure that the Trudeau government was anywhere close to being right.
No, it was a knee-jerk reaction by the kind of woke-leaning liberals. There was this massacre in Nova Scotia. The police didn't know what to do. It was it was just a complete, I mean, it was well beyond their expectations. They didn't know what to do. They had this screwball. But and of course they did a knee-jerk emotional reaction by saying, okay, these are the guns we're going to buy back from everybody. We're going to make them illegal. But they really didn't hit the nail on the head, because the illegal guns, the guns that come into the country that do the most damage are illegal guns coming from the States. And right from the very beginning, the $600 million that we're going to use to buy back firearms they now call illegal should have been applied to the border, because that's where the guns are coming in mass. And the same thing is happening in Mexico too. But we're getting a lot of illegal guns. If you really want to stop that, now the guy that killed all those people in Nova Scotia, I think he had, I don't know how many guns he had, but most of them were illegal guns from the States that he purchased.
And that was exactly the point that was missed by the Liberal government.
So now Carney is stuck with this buyback thing that's being approved by the previous Liberal government, and of course there's all kinds of gun advocate people who want this. They think this is a way in which to reduce gun violence in Canada, or at least stop it from getting any worse. The problem here is the gun owners that have these guns are really not the problem. The real problem is these illegal guns that are coming into the country. Yeah. So the other thing is, how do you, it's a great idea. Let's say you think it's a good idea. How do you then collect these guns? The first thing they wanted was the post office to go around and collect these guns. The post office refused, of course, because they could get into dangerous situations when they try to come and get some guy's gun. Now, who's going to do it? That's been the biggest problem. Do you get the police to do it? Do you get the RCMP to do it? Who do you do this for? Or do you contract somebody else to do it? So first of all, if a guy's got a, like say a Tommy gun, those are now illegal. I knew a guy who had a Tommy gun, right? And so an old Tommy gun, okay, that's now illegal. You can, maybe one of those is very valuable. Say it costs $2,000. So the government comes along and gives you the $2,000 for the gun. Who's going to pick it up?
Mm-hmm.
Who's going to collect it? How many of these guns are going to go underground too? That's the next thing. The biggest issue here I see is the gun collectors who have these guns are not criminals. They are collectors.
Yeah. Well, in fact, actually, there's a couple of things about collectors, because I knew a gentleman who was a collector, and he had this is in Britain at the time when he had some American arms. He had some Russian arms. He and he was a gun collector, but he never used he didn't use a lot of the guns that he collected. They were museum pieces more than anything else.
Yeah, which is a real shame.
And then Britain came out with that thing, and then the British realized that they got it wrong. Right? They got the gun. They were impacting the gun collector like him, who was holding historical pieces.
Yeah, they don't seem to that unfazed them. You can say, well, look, I got this, I got this black powder musket,
Yeah.
And they say, well, it doesn't, that's not good. You got to give it up.
Well, what he had was Second World War, American and Russian. I don't know where he got them from. He did a lot of traveling in Europe to find them.
Well, one of the things that, of course, these groups are putting the fire under Carney. Hey, get these weapons, get them out of there, buy back these weapons. Well, we can think that that's pretty much the last thing on Carney's mind right now, don't you? With all the economic turmoil going on, the existential threat to our economy by the United States. The other thing is it's a real entanglement. Nobody knows how these things are going to be collected.
And rightfully so. It has to be lower priority because the economy has got to be his number one priority right now.
Yeah, and so 2,000 variants of assault-style weapons that were banned in 2020. Now, the public safety minister, Gary Anandasangari, said in the House of Commons in the spring, Liberals would not complete the collection of guns by October amnesty deadline, though he would only say the Carney government was looking at options when pressed by conservative MPs. Yeah. Like, this is a kind of a typical Trudeau thing, a knee-jerk, right? This is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do, right? And nobody thought of it ahead of time before they said it. They could have brought it in before. They say, oh, we're looking at things that we can do to reduce gun violence. Some of that would be to buy back potentially dangerous weapons if they got into the public from collectors. Meanwhile, if you remember, the Trudeau government were loath to point out where the guns were coming from. And the Trudeau government was the one that dismissed the minimal charges if somebody was carrying a gun, because someone who might be carrying a handgun was more likely to be a minority. So in deference to that minority, we must reduce the gun charges. I don't really know where to get that. Because in minority communities, they certainly don't want somebody around there with a gun.
No. And in fact, actually, you talk with most minority communities, and the last thing they want is gun violence within their community.
God, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of those, a lot of the minority communities want to be rid of guns.
I think they should just. Now, this is, and it points out here in the article that the guns that are introduced to crime do not usually, very rarely come from collectors or people who own them.
Yeah, exactly. People like my friend in Britain, he's gone out because he's got this special intrigue about Second World War armament, weapons, right? And he's specifically picked up American and Russian arms. I don't know why he's intrigued by those, but hey, each to their own. I'm not going, I don't argue about that particular thing because he was telling me about it one time and it was a fascinating story. I don't remember any of it, but you know what I mean.
Yes.
And there were hundreds. If you think about it, there were thousands of guns left on the battlefields across Europe.
Oh yeah, there was Enfields all around the world.
Yeah. Well, and what would happen is if a gun, if a gun's running out of bullets, you pick up the nearest one with bullets, don't you?
You sure do.
Right?
Anyways, it's 8:05.
Yep,
We
absolutely.
should wrap it up. And anyway, like always, before I lose the audience here, remember Gaza is becoming insane in there again. They're killing, of course, journalists to make sure the story doesn't come out. But so far, they've killed a minimum of 189. There's others that claim that it's more like around 250, but it's minimum of 189. Those are the ones that can be confirmed by the UN and other agencies. Others report more like around 250. I would go with the latter figure because I think Israel wants to kill any messenger. And until we get foreign journalists in there, we can't believe a thing the IDF says. We never could believe anything Hamas said either, but except their military wing we can't believe, but some of their health people we can. Anyway, without further ado, I bid you adieu.